All right, good afternoon, everybody. The time is 6 p.m. Today is Friday, February 6, 2026. We're here for the council retreat work session of the Coppell City Council meeting. We do have a quorum present, so I'm calling the meeting to order. Item number 2 is our citizens' appearance. Did we have anybody signed up to speak? We did not. Well, since we did not have anybody signed up, I would like to take a brief moment and introduce a neighbor of mine. Aditi is working on her communications merit badge and has been struggling with communicating with me because I didn't respond very quickly about what our meeting times were, so I apologize for that. So thank you for being here and hope you feel a lot better. Let's see, couple of quick announcements. I have a very, very, very important meeting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. It happens to be my granddaughter's 2nd birthday, and my presence is required. So I will be leaving a few minutes before 10 tomorrow morning. Mayor Pro Tem?
Right. Who's in charge?
We may have to talk about this. I also have to leave there.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
okay. Well, we're starting.
I didn't know, this is the first I heard about this, so I didn't know about this.
Yeah, Mike reminded me, I didn't tell you, so.
Okay, yeah. Because I have a
We'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out
daughter,
tomorrow.
well,
So I guess we have to start at 6 then, right?
We're starting at 8 in the morning.
We can start earlier.
well,
No,
man,
we can't. It's posted.
No.
Anyway, let's get started with this evening's agenda. Item number 3 is our discussion regarding the financial trends. And judging by the amount of paperwork that Kim was passing out, she must be first up.
Yeah.
I
She is the whole night.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Get started.
Let me also say, if y'all noticed that you don't have individual mics, we are recording, and those are the mics that are recording, and they're hypersensitive. So I say that just as if you start whispering or anything like that, thinking that it's not being picked up.
Hot mic, hot mic.
Hot mic. Just want to it's a warning to you to let you know. So
Thank you for the
that's not to scare you. You can have whatever comments you'd like, but it's just they're all looking at one person over here.
Dan Culver's gonna hear us.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, go ahead, Kim.
Ready? Okay. Well, thank you. And as has been said, I am here to share some information with you and to have a conversation regarding 2 areas. And that is about debt planning and then about the budget. So this evening, I'm really going to talk to you about the bond refunding opportunity. I brought that to you last year. We didn't. We're going to revisit that. We're also going to look at the potential for maybe an opportunity to issue bonds and what that timeline would look like. And then I'll provide you some information around budget strategies and the budget fund balance transfers. And we'll also look at the budget calendar. Mike will talk about the Austin Gap, and we'll have some conversations walking through some budget assumptions too to get your feedback on. No, it's on the computer. Okay.
You have to point at the computer, I guess.
It's not mine, it's his
Tim.
computer, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to start with talking about some debt planning. And we are going to start with a refunding opportunity. So if you recall, last year or at the beginning of each year, we have our financial advisor look at, do we have any opportunities to refund bonds? And so we had Jason take a look to determine if we had any additional bonds that were callable, and then we asked him to evaluate to see if it would make sense to initiate a refunding to save on those interest costs. And so this is the analysis that Jason provided for us, and I'm going to walk through this with you. So this first section, the navy blue, it shows that we have the 2013 certificate of obligations that are callable. We also now have the 2016 certificate of obligations. Now, last year it was the 2013 and 2015. The 2015 are not in this analysis because it's not, it wouldn't make sense to refund them based on where interest rates are and what the interest rate we're getting on those. So this first section shows you if we refunded them in the current market, what would that look like? And what it's showing you is that overall, over the life of these bonds, we would save about $449,000. What that equates to is an average annual savings of about $45,000. And so the net present value savings is 4.13%. Now, we had Jason go ahead and take a look and say, what if there was some change in the market in interest rates? So what if interest rates dropped to 0.25%? What would that look like? So that's the middle section, and it shows you that the interest cost of the savings would be about $587,000. And then the average annual savings is almost $59,000, and it increases the net present value savings to about 5.5%. And I'm going to stay on this for just a moment because these are your tax-supported bonds. So these are the bonds that are paid with your INS portion of your tax rate. So 1 penny on the INS portion of the tax rate is $191,000. So this really isn't going to impact the tax rate. There's another reason that I'm going to talk to you about in a little bit that will tell you why you might want to consider this refunding, because it could be part of a larger strategy that we put into place. So that's what I want to point out to you here. It doesn't look like much on an annual basis, but it is an opportunity overall to save and to have an impact on the INS. And then the far column is the Coppell Recreation Development Corporation Series 2014, and those are revenue bonds. So those are paid back, the principal and interest on those are paid with the sales tax dollars received by CRDC. And that shows you that there's, if we refund it, in the current market, it's about $768,000 over the life of the bonds that we would save. Now, again, if that market adjustment decreases interest rates by about 2.25%, we would save about $1.1 million. And so the impact is about $93,000 a year would be the reduction in the average savings on the interest per year, and it increases to about 5% would be our net present value savings. Do you have any questions on Jason's analysis?
Just real quick, Kim, so when you're talking, just make sure we're speaking the same language, you're talking about refunding bonds,
Correct.
you're talking about paying them
Correct.
and not refinancing them at lower rates.
Well, that is what we're talking about.
Okay.
Refunding is refinancing. So we would pay these bonds off and issue new debt.
Which is why you're referencing the 25 basis point difference. Okay, thank you.
So when you got started on this one, I was thinking that the 4% and 5% was the effective rate that we're currently paying. It's actually quite the opposite. It's the rate that you would save that's what the rate of return would be on the present value of the bonds.
Yes.
Okay, and that is present value, taking all the values to current day dollars. That is correct?
Yes. So, for example, Mayor, the 2013 bonds, the average coupon rate on those is 4.23. This analysis is based on a 2.77 rate. Interest rate is what Jason predicts we would get in the market today. Do I call on them, Mayor, or? Oh,
Ramesh. Thank you, Mayor.
I feel like the teacher.
Kim, I understand that we're trying to benefit from a lower interest rate. What happens to the term? So I see that 2013 is supposed to end at 2033. When we refinance, will it still end at that year?
Yes, we do not extend the maturity.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So then, Jason is also recommending that we continue, his recommendation is continuing that we do a parameter sale. if you recall, he came last year and explained to you what a parameter sale is. I just slipped this slide in here just to remind you of what that process would look like, and that it is allowed by local government code, and that you are effectively pre-approving the refund based on parameters or guardrails that you give Jason. And that would be part of, we would work with bond counsel to bring forth the proper documentation for council to approve. Okay? Do you have any questions on this piece?
Yeah, what's the going current rate? We saw the 4%, 5%, or 5%. What's the,
He built the refunding on 2.77% for the geos.
yeah, I understand.
The five and that was all based on the return. The previous numbers?
Yes.
That you asked, those weren't the interest rates.
I understand.
Okay.
I was asking her, so the current interest rate is around 2.77.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, we will continue on. So if the direction is that you would like us to move forward with refunding, we would let Jason know. We would work with bond counsel, and then we would bring forward the agenda item to you. If your direction is that you're not interested in at this time, then we would evaluate again in January of 2027. But I ask you to hold your direction until we get a little bit further into the presentation. That's okay? Okay. Any more questions on refunding? All right. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is we had Jason take a look at, did we have any opportunity to issue bonds? And if we did, what would that look like? And we gave Jason some guardrails. One, we let him know council wants to maintain the INS rate. So we don't want to issue bonds and then have that impact the interest and sinking portion of our property tax rate. And so we asked him to consider that. We also asked him just to look at how would those bonds be structured, the repayment, if we wanted to issue debt. And so he prepared this analysis for us, and I want to walk you through this analysis. So first, what he did, he took our starting taxable tax assessed valuation, and then he has it growing at 3%. And that was a parameter, and you have this, like it's a handout, yeah. So he has the assessed values growing at a growth rate of 3%. And then he's showing what is our total principal and interest payments. And that is not just the portion that's supported by the INS tax rate, but if you recall, we issue certificate of obligations for water sewer projects, and we would issue them for CRDC projects. But we use water and sewer revenue to pay its portion of the bond issue, and we use CRDC sales tax to pay its portion. And so what he does next, that's what that red column is. It's the less self-supporting P&I to get to what is our current principal and interest payment. So you can see today or this year we'll pay almost $8.5 million in principal and interest, and that's what our tax rate was set at, the INS to cover. And you'll see that our current tax rate is 0.0680. What you'll notice is in the following year, so in this current year, or in the 2027 budget year, I should say, the projected tax rate goes up just slightly. It goes up to 0.0686. And that is just because of the way that we structured the bonds. But that doesn't mean the tax rate is going up, because what we did, and I'm going to walk over here, is we said we were going to use fund balance of the debt service fund to keep the tax rate flat. And so that's what's happening with the $26,000. It takes about $26,000 to keep the 0.00680 tax rate. So then what happens if, and he looked at, we could issue bonds in 2027 and in 2030. And what he's showing is that we could issue 10.3 and 10.3. Now, if we issued bonds in 2027, those bonds would not start being paid back until 2028. So this is a 2028 tax rate implication, right? Or if you issue in 2030, we would issue in 2030, the first principal and interest payments would be due in the 2031 fiscal year, okay? So what I asked him to do is to structure the repayments and then work in the refunding. So here's where the refunding comes in and the impact that the refunding could have on this plan. And then show what's needed for the principal and interest to pay back and how much of our fund balance would we need to use for how many years to maintain the tax rate. And so it's showing that we would need about $186.5 thousand. We have a fund balance policy that requires us to maintain 1 month of the maximum principal and interest due in any 1 year. And so we would still be able to accomplish that requirement and use $186,500. So why would we want to do this? Why would we want to issue bonds? And we're going to talk a little bit more this evening. Mike's going to talk to you about the Austin Gap, but we're going to talk to you too about some things that we're seeing in Austin, things that happened in the last legislation. And one of those was there was a bill that was entered that did not pass. It didn't move forward. But what it was doing was moving any future certificate of obligations issued by cities to be paid with the M&O tax rate. And so the implication of that is it will impact city services, right? If they're keeping our tax rate, our tax revenue can only increase 3.499, and now we have to pay any debt that our COs back with that tax rate, then that leaves less to provide services. So it's just something to think about, to get ahead of. It's a strategy that we could use. And so then what would we use this for? So the projects that we were looking at are projects that we've already identified, and it's Fire Station 1, 2, and 3. The cost of all 3 of these projects is about $17 million. Fire Station 3 is the first one, and it's a little over $6 million. And so what we were thinking is use a strategy to go ahead and issue COs for these projects, preserving our M&O for actual operations. And then there are some other projects that we know that the community would like us to do. And so the money that we have set aside for these projects that we were going to pay cash for, using that cash for some other projects. So it's just being flexible and resilient and really being thoughtful about how we approach things as we move forward.
Mayor.
I'm going to go back and just take a moment.
Thank you, Mayor. Kim, I don't know if you are the right person to answer. For Fire Station 3, that refresh, my memory is failing me now. Have we reached the end of cycle of what we can get from Fire Station 3, and is it due for a refresh?
All 3 fire stations were essentially built near the same time frame. And the answer to the question is they are 24/7 operations and they're beat to heck. And it's not like your home. It's basically a commercial operation 24/7. So the answer is yes. And if you recall, you may not be fully aware of this, but Fire Station 3 being that it housed basically the equivalent of 2 stations in it, it was heavily used, and for, gosh, many years, for example, the air conditioning and heating system was atrocious for our firefighters. And so the answer is all 3 stations have aged at the same rate. That's why we're talking about doing all 3 stations now, especially since we have Fire Station 4 and Fire Station 5. So now we're just trying to equalize, much like the school district's been doing with their schools. They're bringing them up to speed. Yeah. So that answer your question?
Yeah.
Have you been in Fire Station 3?
No, I think it's on my desk.
Go walk through it. It's not bad, but it's, like Mike said, it's worn.
It's their home.
And again, this is a strategy. Incorporating refunding and doing bonds in next year, I guess we issue. This is just a strategy to get ahead as we talk about the Austin Gap in a little bit. So, if the direction is that we would like to move forward with issuing some bonds, then we would notify our financial advisor that, that we would like to. And then we would begin engaging with bond counsel to obtain some reimbursement resolutions. And then we would incorporate this into our 5-year forecast. And so it would be important, I think they're looking, the fire station has went out to bid just to see what it would cost in April. Is that?
The timing of when it'll be
Yeah.
brought to council,
Do you know the
Yeah,
time?
they're at 90% right now, so.
next 60 days.
The next, 60, 90 days, we'll
Okay.
get it for award.
Right. So we would want to do a reimbursement resolution.
Before awarding that.
Correct.
Yeah, it'll be in GMP.
And in that instance too, let me just add this, in that instance, it does create great flexibility for us because you haven't committed to anything at that point as far as the debt is concerned, but by designating or creating a reimbursement resolution, you then have the option, because anything that is spent from that point forward can be reimbursed by the debt if it's decided to be issued. If we don't do the resolution, any of those expenses would be paid just like we planned on being paid. And if you decided to do a reimbursement later, you can't go back. That's just how they work.
So it doesn't lock you in,
Right.
gives you some flexibility.
Kim, on the sheet that Jason provided, the previous page, I noticed that he used a tax rate of, or a growth rate of 3%. You've been very consistent for a while to use 2.5% in our 5-year plan. Is there any difference in any reason why that he chose 3 versus our standard 2.5?
No, we gave him that direction. We wanted it, I mean, looking at what we've
Actual.
been seeing, and looking that it's just a year out, we felt like 3 would be attainable. So,
Okay, thank you.
mhm.
So this is where,
Let's-
hold it before you go
There
there.
we go, yeah.
So this is where the two thought processes come together. The first question was, were you supportive of the refinancing, or refunding, excuse me, that can stand on its own as a decision? And are you interested in us at least moving forward with engaging council to create the reimbursement resolution? So before we leave tonight, as in this point, we just need to park it here so we can hear your direction.
Sorry, Kevin? Just had a question. On the sheet, I'm looking at the growth rate, and if you said this, I apologize, but the 3% is only like for 6 years, and then it drops to 0. Did
And
you
he
touch on that?
didn't, he just didn't build out, and he didn't build it out any further because there wasn't gonna be, because the principal and interest payments decrease.
Okay.
So it was, the tax rate would fall below,
Okay, all right,
That's fine.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
Yeah.
missing anything on that.
yeah.
And that's
Okay.
falling below because the current bonds are being paid off at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the conversation, if some future council will be having the same, and this is all, let me remind you, that this is all built on the premise of previous direction that we've received of keeping the INS rate at a stable number. That's, if that's, from a policy standpoint, if it's a good policy, that, it should influence then this discussion.
Don?
So the fire stations, that's already in the 5-year plan, is that right? So those projects were coming. I mean,
Yes.
that was proposed to come already. And they were just gonna be paid out of fund balance?
So.
And set aside, and the.
Yeah, so that was part of, you recall, 2025, or, yes, 2025, we did the 31 million transfer from the general fund to IMF.
Yeah.
Those were 3 identified projects that made up that 31 million.
Okay, so that money was set aside, okay.
So,
So this option is, instead of taking it out of that fund, we would issue new debt for those projects, right? And then that would free up those set-asides for other capital replacement or other.
But we would, I'll go ahead and say this, you know, the Parks Master Plan came out, and the number one project was basically the refurbishment of the core. Add amenities and everything because of everybody that's doing around us. I'm just telling you today, that would be one that would be easily identifiable, that could be used for that
For
purpose.
those funds.
Yeah, and that's gonna be an expensive, that will be an expensive project.
Okay.
I don't know who was first, Jim and Ramesh.
I looked that way.
Well, I was
You look that way.
thinking that way, so we'll go with Mike. Ramesh?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Jim.
Sorry.
No worries, Kay.
I think philosophically, I am in support of refinancing to a lower interest rate and benefiting from the cost saving. And also, having attended this retreat as an audience member, I remember you have drilling towards the seesaw effect and trying to keep the INS portion at the 0.07, and then to see that the $10 million that we would have to spend for fire stations either comes from fund balance or through bonds. And given what Austin is trying to do, I'm also in support of going this route of issuing bonds.
Jim?
Thanks. So we're trying to respond to that legislation that didn't pass.
I wouldn't say that we're responding. I would say that we are just being very strategic. We're paying attention, and we are trying to prepare ourselves for should that happen, right? So we are just being proactive and thinking about what is the future going to look like and what can we do today to address that.
So, but Abbott's 5-point plan includes a cram down on debt too, right?
They're collecting a lot of debt information from us, so I would gather that they're going to do something with it.
Yeah. So there's really no way to predict how this would look in relation either to legislation similar to or different from what they proposed and whatever Abbott's plan ends up with. But this at least gives us a little breathing room is kind of what I'm saying. What's the state's bond rate?
I have no idea. I know we talked about that, didn't we? Yeah.
Or do they have a AAA bond rating?
I don't know.
I'd like to know that.
Okay.
That's the
Make a
most
note.
interesting question I've heard in a while.
So what is the state monitoring?
The bond rating.
Bond rating.
Oh, bond rating.
They don't follow that.
I think
Something tells me we're doing a better job than they are.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
they are running surplus. They are running surplus, so that might help their rating.
Yeah, of course Abbott treats it like it's coming in annually, and it's not.
Don?
That was my other question on bond rating, so adding $21 million in debt, I mean, he doesn't anticipate that would have any impact on bond rating for us or anything. So it is very interesting, Jim, you make the comment about using a lot of the surplus. Apparently the 27 UTP, which is the transportation bucket, for the 10-year transportation bucket came out, and it is decreasing from last year. It was 110 billion or something, and it's dropping to like 94 billion because there's not as much surplus to put over into that category going forward. So it's
Well, they had
interesting.
to fund Hollywood.
So what's he doing?
They've got their
Creating a
priorities.
retirement account for himself?
Well, and I'm sure they are, maybe I shouldn't keep my opinions to myself on what they're doing down there, but, property tax, you know, they're trying to do things with property tax reductions and fund more things, so I just wonder if they're keeping more surplus available for other things.
That'll just be temporary. That surplus is gonna go away real quickly. I had a question and we got off track and I don't remember what it was. Oh, I'm sorry, it was a comment. Kim was talking and Mike were talking about the policy that we had made to keep the INS rate constant. Let's not forget that we did that very purposefully and very consciously over a period of time. And especially with the way that the state uncertainty is going, I think it's very important not to give up any of that INS rate because we could very potentially lose it in the future very quickly. And so I think that back 10 years ago, when we set that policy, and the number has changed, but the policy has remained in place. I think that was actually something that was pretty wise to do back then. We originally started at 11.4%.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Are you talking
Are-
about
It
the?
was, I think
You're
so.
talking about the interest rate, I mean.
The INS rate.
INS rate.
The
Why are you surprised? I remember a number like that.
Just, I mean,
The INS rate in 21 was right at 10 cents. So, even under this plan, the INS rate is still going to be
In my,
well, part of that has to do
Yeah.
with the values.
it was 11.116027 in 2018, and that was, I believe, when we started the ventilator stuff around then.
Bijou?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Okay, I just wanted to understand, 192 million is the total debt for the city of Coppell?
With principal and interest.
How much are we trying to refinance?
The amount that is eligible to refinance, and so these are the only bonds that are eligible for refinancing. They're the only ones that are, these are the ones that are callable that would make sense. There's one other issue, the 2015 certificate of obligations, but it doesn't make sense to because of the rate that we're getting on those, that we're paying on those. So it is, and this is just the interest, the cost of interest. So we would have, this is the amount left in interest for those two bonds. That's
So the
right.
total
That's
amount-
That's what we're saving. I'd have to look, I don't think I have that. Yeah, I'll get that to you. I didn't think about the debt schedules.
Okay, so we are trying to save how much here?
So in the current market, we would say almost 449,000.
For how many years?
So it's over until they're paid off in 2036. We don't extend the maturity. These bonds were originally, they would be paid, the 2016 we do 20 years, so they'd be paid off in 2036. The 2013 would be paid off in 2033. We would not extend those. The maturity stays the same. So we're only trying to take advantage of interest rates.
So in 10 years, we will save 448,700.
Right, the net present value savings is the 4.13, assuming this is the market that we enter. If rates come down 0.25 from where they're at right now, we would say the net present value savings would be almost 5.5%.
And also the CRDC series 2014, right, Kim?
Yeah, and these are the two that impact your tax rate.
Okay.
This one is paid with sales tax. So it's just, I want to make sure that we keep those
I mean,
distinctions.
from my point of view, anything that we pay less in interest is savings for the city. So I understand what you're saying about this impacts the tax rate and that does not, but they both drive savings for the city.
Yes, I agree.
Can I ask one more process question? So Kim,
Sure.
Thank you. Kim, if we decide to refinance, will there be a period of time where that new CEO will be locked, as in we won't be able to, let's say the interest rate really drops this December, will we be able to go back and do another refinance?
There would still be a callable, like a period before you could call it.
I see. And usually how long is that?
I'm not sure, I'll find out for you. I don't want to,
Jim and then Don.
Thank you, Mayor.
I think Tim.
So just to respond to Biju's question, since we're not changing the term and we're refinancing, it wouldn't actually change the total amount of principal, right, that we have currently. It would just result in debt carry savings.
Right, that was my point.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Don?
Is Jason recommending waiting to see if we drop another 25 bips, or is it, what's he?
So it'll depend on the parameters that you set up.
Okay.
And he'll come and help make some recommendations on what those parameters are and watching the market and working with his team to determine the right time.
Whether we, okay, the right time to actually execute the refunding?
Yes.
I got it, okay. All right, thanks. Ed, one more, and we don't have a parameter in place now, right?
You do not.
Okay, that's what I thought I remembered, we didn't decide not to do it.
No.
Okay.
So part of the guidance that y'all are looking for today, does that include the CRDC
Yes.
as well? Because I know you're saying that obviously that's on the self-supporting principal and interest side, so on that first column of red, so, but all of that plays in the equation to get us the savings that we need. Or is that just-
No, that is not part of the self-supporting. So the self-supporting is just COs that were issued for CRDC projects.
Okay.
That is revenue bonds, so that is not part of that second analysis that I showed you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's separate.
But still, that is part of the recommendation that.
It is because, as Ramesh said, it is a savings to the city, to
Yeah.
that fund, right?
Okay.
I also thought that fell under the self-supporting, so this is a different.
Yeah, it is different. This is separate, it's paid, yeah.
What's the cost of doing this exercise?
So what is the issuance cost?
Refinancing and all that,
I could get with Jason and he can run the numbers and get it for us. That would be taken into consideration here. I can find out what he's put in here.
Right, I think we're,
Are we good with moving forward with the refunding and moving forward with a reimbursement resolution?
everybody okay with that?
Okay.
We're good.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we're on budget calendar, and really what you have a copy of this, I put it in your SharePoint site. We sent out an email also with everything that was handed out. But what I want to just point out a few dates for you is the town hall will be on April 7th, and then the service orgs open up in April. In May, we will present you, or the assistant directors will present the 5-year forecast to you. And then on May 26th, we will bring the service organizations to you to show you who, based on your policy, would present, and are those the people that you want to present, or the organizations, I should say. And then in June, we will do a Budget 101 or something similar. We may tweak it up for you guys a little bit. And then we will also hold the Crime Control and Prevention District Board will hold the public hearing at the beginning of that council meeting. And then July, a lot of the fun starts. So we will have our first budget workshop on July 13th, and that will be the service orgs, special revenue funds, and water sewer. It's also banana pudding night. And then on the 21st, we'll cover the general fund and the debt service fund. And then we get certified values on the 25th. So on the 27th is when we have our final budget workshop, where we'll incorporate everything, all the feedback that has been given, anything that you wanted us to incorporate will be included, and we'll show you how that looks. We'll also walk through certified values and the tax rate that is being calculated based on those certified values. And then in August, we have the vote on the maximum proposed tax rate on the 11th. We will file the charter, the proposed budget, the proposed budget with the city secretary's office on the 5th, which is required by charter. On the 11th, you will also, as a governing body, hold the public hearing of the Crime Control and Prevention District's budget. And then on the 25th is when the budget and tax rate public hearing will be held, and when those two items would be adopted. I do want to mention the timing of things in August. This may shift, and the reason is there's new legislation that requires the tax assessor collector to provide the backup to the tax rate calculation, and it has to be attached to the agenda. So the county is our certified tax assessor collector, so we're waiting on their schedule to know exactly when they're going to get us all of that documentation so that we know that we'll have it in time for our schedule. So,
Kim, before you move on.
Yes.
Two things I just want to mention. Excuse me. If I count right, there's 9 different opportunities that the public has direct opportunity to be able to comment, say whatever they want to say, offer suggestions, ask questions on the budget process. So that's just, there's a lot of opportunity for the public to be able to provide input. Second thing I'd like to say is I want to congratulate Kim and her team. Do it.
I'm going to talk about it too.
Oh, well then you talk about it. It's yours. It's your congratulations, so you go ahead.
Well, I have it worked in.
Oh, I'll be
Right
quiet then.
time.
It's like, don't mind.
I am teasing her congratulations, so we will have it. So go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so,
I actually have a question.
We have one more question.
About is this, besides what you just mentioned specifically from the county piece where you're looking for that, is this pretty much the same rhythm that we did last year? Or,
so we all, it is a similar.
Similar?
The order, yes.
Yes.
And the groupings of the budget workshops,
Mhm.
yes. We do try to do them in July. Last year, we had to pull one, we pulled one out and put it in June, just for timing purposes.
okay,
And then, but we like to hold them in July.
Yeah.
But isn't August a little bit busier this year?
Well, I think what we're showing you on here is we're showing you the election deadlines for calling a tax rate, and maybe we don't usually do that.
Okay.
So we put those on there for you.
And to add to your calendar question, Kevin, if you recall, in the past, we typically don't have a second meeting in June. Last year was the pullout because of just the way the calendar was working.
Okay.
So,
maybe that's what I'm.
yeah.
It looks similar, but it looked like a little.
We typically don't have a second meeting. Vacation? No, we don't. We're
For
not
the July
planning
4th.
The 2 in July.
So
Anything
you-
else on calendar? So the next conversation is around fund balance, and I'm going to cover fund balance. I want to share with you what is fund balance, what are sound fund balance policies, why has the fund balance increased, and how is fund balance being used, which will lead us to a discussion around transfers. And then I'm going to wrap up this section with providing you just a brief summary of our fund balance conversation. Before I begin, though, I would like to let you know that I did take a little bit of a different approach to all of these fund balance topics. And my goal really is to provide you with what I hope is an easier way for you to share the information when you're asked questions about fund balance. So this is the first slide, and it is, we're going to start with what is fund balance. And the answer is fund balance represents the net result of city revenues and expenditures accumulated over many years. And so it's the water in the bucket. And you know I like water. Okay. I don't get too much water anymore. So, okay. So what this is showing you is one, it's the revenues going in increases the water in the bucket. And then the expenditures kind of draw from the bucket. What's really important to take away from this is built up over many years. And in Coppell's case, it's likely since 1955 when the city was incorporated and started charging revenues and paying for services that it provides. So this is, I hope, helpful, a helpful way to look at it. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. And so I wanted to also provide you with some fund balance practices, which you have all adopted as policies. You've adopted a fund balance policy that includes a minimum fund balance levels. For example, we have the charter requirement of 10%. Council also implemented the 15% requirement, and then you also implemented the 50%. And when all of those, the 10, the 15, and the 50, are based on adopted budgeted expenditures. So 75% of the adopted budgeted expenditures are, you have said that's the minimum fund balance. So that's the minimum water level in that bucket that you want us to maintain. You've also established guidelines for regarding how fund balance over policy can be used. So any excess fund balance, you've directed us on that and adopted a policy, and that is only for one-time uses, never for ongoing costs. You've also shared with us, we have in the guidelines, and I've provided you the policy and the guidelines. You know, we have the assigned fund balance category of 2040 initiatives, the strategic reserve, and then as those one-time projects are identified, we may know that we need to do a project, we don't necessarily know when. We go ahead and show those as an assignment and identify an amount to put with that. So why has fund balance increased? The reason fund balance has increased really is attributed to two budget strategies that we have implemented. The first one is that we budget sales tax as if the rule is in effect. We also conservatively budget interest income. If you recall, during the budget workshops in July, I shared with you that we were budgeting interest income conservatively with the intention of using it for one-time costs. So we would see where we landed, it flows into fund balance, and then it can be used for one-time costs. And we do that because of the uncertainty in the market today. And so some of the strategy I did want to share. So why are these strategies that we do, why are they important? And just to reiterate, it doesn't create future obligations that we can't sustain. It prevents scrambling if the rules change or if interest rates decrease, because we are prepared. And it provides flexibility, resilience, and intentionality. And I think that you saw that when COVID hit. In 2019, when we found out about the rule, Mike led us through preparing for that potential rule change. So when COVID hit, we were prepared. We had already adjusted and did some adjustments, and that helped us when that happened. So how has the increase in fund balance been used? And what I want to start with is the ones on the bottom, the dog park, the veterans, the new building for INTEC. I'm showing those for reference. INTEC is CCPD fund balance. These two were CRDC fund balance. They benefit from budgeting as if the sales tax rule is in effect, and that additional sales tax that we continue to collect goes in, and it's been used for some of these projects. The Fund 2040 initiative, that was an item in the fiscal year 26 budget that we're in right now. We had identified some one-time uses to move forward some of the 2040 initiatives, and that is an actual use of your fund balance, because once we budgeted it as an expenditure, now it's going to be used, okay? The top three are transfers. So we transferred to fully fund the replacement funds. We transferred to the IMF, and then this year we also budgeted $5.5 million to transfer to the Drainage Utility District to cover some of those projects that were identified after their rate study, just so that they could continue doing some of those projects while they conduct another rate study. And next I wanted to talk to you about transfers. Because I think they're confusing. And what I wanted to say is a transfer is not new revenue. It is really the movement of money from one bucket to another bucket. So you can see the general fund is moving water to these other funds, and these are the funds that I just told you we transferred money to. A transfer is not spending. It's not an expenditure until it's budgeted. Or when we come to council and the fiscal impact says The funding source is from assigned fund balance and will be included in a future budget amendment. Okay? What's really important to connect with is the total water level does not change. We're just moving the water from one bucket to other buckets. So it's not new revenue, it's the same water. It's not an expenditure because it hasn't left. There's no little orange drip line coming out of here. Okay? Do you have any questions on transfers? Because I know that's been something
Sure.
Thank you. So I get, of course, that it's the same amount of money, it's just transferred to other buckets. So then what is the purpose? What does that facilitate for us going forward if the money's been moved to IMF, DUD, and the replacement funds, as opposed to only being transferred from the general fund once the expenditure's been approved?
The purpose is that you have told us, or we've identified a use. And so it allows us to move it to where you've identified, and now it's only going to be used here. And I would say what it has helped us do, and I'm going to use the replacement funds as an example. So we took the money from general fund, and we moved it to the capital replacement fund and the enterprise solutions replacement fund, and we fully funded those. Prior to doing that, the general fund budget would budget for 1 year's useful life, so that when it came time to buy that piece of equipment again, we would do that every year. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, so at the end of 5 years, that's when it's time, we could buy it. But that year that we bought it, we were budgeting 1 year plus the cost of the item. So that causes peaks and valleys in the general fund's budget. By moving the money out of general fund and fully funding it and knowing how we're going to use it, it provides some stability to the general fund, and we know how to use it. It's a strategy. There are a lot of cities who are jealous of Coppell because we have those replacement funds.
So, okay, so then when you say that we're moving it over, is that to meet the needs we've identified for a 5-year plan?
Yes, when we fully...
So it's a 5-year look forward on what we're going to spend?
So I'll stay focused on the replacement funds. When we did that, we looked at what vehicles, machinery, and equipment do we have, and how much is needed to, if we had to replace that, what would we need to replace all of those? And we put that money in there. And so it's there, so as they need to replace a police vehicle, they're building, we bought the fire trucks, they haven't been delivered yet, but we've ordered those, so the money is there when we place the order. And it's coming out of there, it's not coming out of the general fund, so there's no property tax impact for the full cost. The property tax impact, or the budgetary impact to the general fund, is for that 1 year of useful life, so that we can replenish it and buy it 5 years later.
Okay, so if we decided instead, like to go to 3 hook and ladders instead of 4, then we would just have that excess amount for the 4th one in the replacement fund, and to be used at a later date for something else.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Ramesh?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to follow up on what Jim was asking. So going with the example of buying a fire truck, Kim, walk me through one more time the benefit of paying for it from replacement fund as opposed to general fund.
So the reason that we moved the money from the general fund to the capital replacement fund was because we had identified what we needed, right? And so it puts the money over here, and this is what we're going to use it for. So it's no longer commingled with the general fund. You have said this is a policy, this is what we want to do. So we're moving it over here, and it can only be used for this. Okay, so it provides that structure to decisions that you've made.
So when we move from general to a specific fund, we lose some flexibility because now when you move it to replacement, you can only use it for replacement. So we lose some flexibility there. But you're saying there is a bigger advantage. So can you tell me one more time, what is the advantage of dedicating it to that?
So may I?
Sure.
In 2012, which is when we started that, we got hit with a $1.2 million bill for a hook and ladder truck. It was known it was coming, but we had no way for reserving the funds for that purchase. And that was when we instructed the finance department to start the replacement fund.
Thank you, Mayor. When you say we got hit, what is that, because anyway we are paying for it, so what is the meaning of being hit?
Well, what I would add to what the mayor said is back then, we did not, our fund balance wasn't what it is today. The fund balance has increased because of the strategies that we put in place regarding sales tax and regarding interest income. So our fund balance has grown, and so now we are using it for one-time costs. So the fire truck, we replace it every 10 or 15 years, 10 to 12 years, I think. So moving the money over, it's a one-time, it took it off, at that time, it was an impact to the tax rate. Because we were paying for it out of the general fund, so the property tax rate had to be set to cover that 1.2.
Got it. So that's the answer I was looking for. So when we pay a big ticket item from general fund, that has a potential to affect the tax rate. But when we plan for it and pay for it from a replacement fund or another fund, it does not directly hit the tax rate. Okay. Got it.
And all of this, everything, every time we move money to IMF for the 31 million, we pay 5.5 to debt, we do the replacement fund. That's forward thinking. You guys are looking into the future and saying, what do we need to do today to set the community up in the best possible light, right? And so you're thinking about and going ahead and setting that money aside for those purposes.
So look at it this way. If we hadn't transferred that 31 million, and we didn't have that 31 million in the fund like we do, and we needed to spend 31 million, you're gonna go out and issue a huge debt for that. Or raise your tax rate a whole bunch. So you typically, that puts you in the mode of issuing debt all the time, and this minimizes our need to do that. That 2012 was a painful year budget-wise. We were at an all-time high property tax rate, and that was very painful. Our tax rate at that point was like 0.68, 0.69. I'm sorry, yeah, I'm taking the Kim show away.
You're good. Are there any more questions on transfers?
Alice,
Don?
one quick question. Not to get on replacement funds, but are we still funneling a year's worth of, are we replenishing the replacement funds as we go, even though they're fully funded, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
So we're
it's
still-
fully
that's still
funded so that we have the money, but if we don't replace it, then we're gonna be in the same situation that we
Okay.
were.
And I thought that was the case, I
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify. So we are continuing a year at a time to get ready for the next,
Yes.
okay, keep it fully
Yep.
funded.
Yes. So really what I want you to take away from this conversation is that an increase in fund balance does not mean the city has new permanent money. It does mean the city chose not to spend uncertain revenue on ongoing costs and instead preserved it for one-time needs. So that really is what we just talked about. Any
So-
questions?
Mayor, Kim, quick point of clarification. I think I understand what you're trying to say in bullet 1. You're saying if I replenish the replacement fund from general fund, I just transfer the money, it's not new money. However, another way of interpreting that is when you say increase in fund balance, if we talk about the overall fund balance, if we add up all the fund balances, and if it was 200 million last year and it went to 205 this year, that is an increase in fund balance, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is what I get to share. So what I wanted to also share is that thoughtful strategic choices implemented today that have a focus on the future, sustainability of the city, is what we're doing. This is what makes Coppell unique and different from other communities. Our focus on creating strategies to employ today that will have a positive impact on the future sustainability of this community. And it's core to our culture, which asks us to begin with the end in mind. We never think about an annual budget when we are building each year. We think about the impact that budget will have on future years, and we demonstrate that through our 5-year forecast process. And that is key to building each year's annual budget. And we can't afford to be short-sighted if we want to remain flexible, resilient, and have the ability to be intentional. So, why did I tell you all that? I told you all of that because the city did just receive its Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the 17th consecutive year. But what really is special about this award is that Coppell received special recognition. We received perfect scores from all 3 reviewers on the area of long-range operating financial plans, our 5-year forecast. Specifically, one of the reviewers shared a comment, and I want to share that comment with you. It said, the comment was, "A link is provided in budget to the 5-year forecast. This forecast is a very detailed document that incorporates the impacts of strategic planning and other financial planning. It is one of the most detailed presentations I have seen, and it is evident that this is a tool that is used by the city for policy decisions. Well done." Another comment from another reviewer just said, "Short and long-term planning is evident throughout the budget presentation." This special recognition is really a citywide team accomplishment that's made possible by your support. Council provides to staff, and your focus on the impact of the decisions that you make on the future sustainability of this city is what allows us to do that. And I just want to thank you. So that's where my passion is. So thank you for letting me have that mic.
No, you're good. The mayor was telling me something else, but it's all good.
Any questions on fund balance?
So congratulations.
Thank you.
So do you get a gold plaque or?
I don't know. We've never had this happen before, so we'll find out. We will do a press release and
So
share that.
who is it that does the audit? I mean, your
review.
The review.
So GFOA, so the Government Finance Officers Association, we submit it, and I'm not sure, they have reviewers from all over, and there is a forum, they're making sure that everything is in there that we need to have in there, so we're pretty proud of this one, because it was, to get a perfect score on an area is a great achievement of the team, the organization, really working hard.
Kevin?
I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for the council on this, but let's be really honest. You say that we give you the guidance. Let's be very honest here. It's the staff, it's the team, and you guys are constantly trying to educate at least me on that. So I appreciate you mentioning that the council support this, but we wouldn't be in the position that we're in without your leadership, Mike's leadership, the entire CMO's office. You guys are the ones, with your hand on the wheel on a daily basis to make those things happen. So I think that the city of Coppell owes you a debt of gratitude for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
Don?
Had other cities, did anybody else get a perfect score, I guess is what
I
I'm
don't
wondering.
know, and I don't care.
We were the only ones that got it. We were creme de la creme. So, congratulations.
Ramesh had a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a comment and a question. First comment is great job by the SPF team. I'm sure the city manager should have some kind of an award or bonus for that. Otherwise, he should take you out for a nice dinner, lunch. The question, and this is might be a crazy question, Kim. So we have about $192+ million in debt or liability, is there a guideline of what's the total fund balance should be as a ratio or proportion of the debt?
I was gonna ask that and decided not to, because it was gonna sound too condescending, because I don't remember who was around when that was discussed, but Tim brought in a consultant for the bond rating.
It would have been Jason.
It was one of Jason's people, but it was
Yeah.
not Jason. Anyway, the bond rating companies traditionally had never released their criteria on what they used as to give you the rating. And there was a little bit of an uncovering of some of the criteria. And the bottom line was they recommended that 50% number. They couldn't, and now the trouble is that does not guarantee that you're going to be AAA if you meet the 50%. And it doesn't say that if you're at 45%, you can't be AAA, but they felt that 50% number was a really, really good rule of thumb, and that was when we adopted it.
So Mayor, when you say 50%, our total liability should be 50% of our funds?
No, the fund balance is 50% of your annual budget.
Ah, okay.
And then the 192, there's not even a good guideline on that. But they don't really, the weird thing was, and this drives a lot of conservative financial people crazy, they don't care how much your debt is, as long as that you can show that you can pay it off. And they are absolutely concerned about your ability to pay off the debt and the planning, which is what Kim was talking about. So the fact that they rated us, or her department, in doing such an excellent job tells you that the amount is not really their concern, it's your ability to meet your obligation. Did I do okay? Thank you. It's really meeting the obligation is their criteria.
Understood.
And it really is my team. They're the ones that do all the work, pulling all that together and facilitating the process. So.
Kim, and
Goes
so
to you.
I will comment this, because in reality, Kevin, I appreciate what you're saying for staff. We got an awesome staff that do great work. But y'all do establish policy. It is our job. We're the.
I'm just following y'all's lead.
Well, no, but you collectively
Yeah.
make those policy decisions, and it's those policy decisions that we design to. So yes, we do design, we do work, we do the planning and all that kind of, but you as a policy setting board, council, it's those things, like we talked earlier, our level debt, right? It's we'll get into the budget, but it's those directions that we design to, then they allow us to then present to you the ideas that give you the flexibility and the agility based on what we understand that policy is. So it is a very intertwined relationship. It takes both parties to make this successful.
Don?
So I'll piggyback a little bit, and I have really come to appreciate more and more some of the strategic guidance that staff gives us. And it's because I talk to other counselors and mayors and such from other cities, and the vast majority of cities are not in this position. And, it may be because we've collected extra sales tax and things like that. But if you even look at the DART conversation going on right now, there are some cities that would love to have that penny sales tax back to do a lot of the things they can do with it. And they are struggling because Austin is capping them at 3.5, or talking about 2.5 or 1 or whatever it is. And so I can only, and I know we're not growing anymore, and so we're sort of plateauing and figuring out, okay, how do we make this sustainable? And we've got resources. I can only imagine what it's like having to give strategic decisions in a city that doesn't quite have the resources, but they are also plateauing. So I really have come to appreciate a lot of the forward-thinking, sort of strategic, how can we make this ship keep sailing like it's been sailing into the future? So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on to future budget considerations, strategies, and assumptions. And Mike is up.
Yeah, the Austin Gap. So let me start with, is the next slide?
Yes.
Let me start with just a conversation that I was in yesterday. Kent was on the line as well. The North Texas Commission has like a governance policy advisory, legislative policy advisory group. And y'all take a look at that basically in the fall, and you see what their bullets are, and a lot of times we align with those bullets or incorporate those bullets. And one of their first bullets, or first one or two bullets, had to do with, well, the first one was lobbying, but the second one had to do with property caps, any kind of revenue caps, any kind of expenditure caps in general. And it was just really interesting to hear the conversation because it was almost like an awakening was happening for the cities that were online. Wouldn't you agree with the way that it came across? So Don Maynard over in Richardson was talking about that this year they showed the council what they projected with the cumulative effect of all the current laws that have, and he was happy to share the model, and I kind of sheepishly was like, well, okay, well, we've been doing this since 2019, and by the way, we call it the Austin Gap, and just so you'll know, they really latched onto that, and Kent was the one that had really come up with the word of Austin Gap, but they love that because it gives them something they can brand to. Now, I don't know how it's going to evolve, but it'd be nice to have it used throughout, not just Coppell talking about the Austin Gap, so we don't become a target or something else. Right. But what we shared with them is, and we alluded to last summer in the special session. If y'all remember, we put together very quickly a series of questions because they introduced in the summer legislation that would have capped expenditures to zero, basically. Whatever you had the year before, that's what you get to have this year. They were discussing the 2.5% to the 1%. They were toying with including public safety, excluding public safety. They were all over the map. And Representative Hernandez, Cassandra had reached out to us and said, I'm on that particular committee that's going to be hearing it. Can you give me some help? And with y'all's input, some of y'all had sent questions, and working with the mayor, we sent a series of questions that during 5 hours of Cassandra sitting there, every time she asked a question, the author of the bill or other conservatives could not answer the question. They didn't know. They didn't know what the impact was going to be if you put expenditures at zero and you cap the revenues, and they didn't know. So in one way, we did a good job heading that off. The other way, we gave them here's the questions that you're going to be asked during the legislative session. So we fed that to the North Texas Commission, and we fed what you're going to see a little bit later, the model, the updated model for us as it relates to planning out through 2030, 2031, and the Austin Gap. And just as a reminder, what the Austin Gap is, it's the gap that's created by the various decisions being made down in Austin, not just one singularly, and their long-term impact on the city. So if you recall, we call it the duck bill, but basically it's the difference between here's what the cap on revenues are from property tax standpoint, especially in a non-growing, slow-growing community, and the growth of expenditures. And the growth of expenditures, just from a modeling standpoint, is basically based on inflation, right? It's not really based on anything else. So it's not like we're juicing the expenditures. It's just taking inflation and adding it to it. Oh, did you want to stop me?
Question. Whenever you're done.
Okay. So anyway, so that gap, and we started talking about this gap even in 2000. I think you told me it was 2018, 2019 when SB2 was introduced, and we made the comment then, and I showed the council at the time that model still held up. If we go back and look at the numbers, we could project either on no new revenue rate or 3.499 what the revenues of the city would be. One, at that time we did that was prior to the sales tax change, so you can imagine now that they changed the sales tax, that gap started growing, right, because of what was happening. And so we have been purposely, for the last multiple years, scouring is a good word, I would say, our budget expenditures to help what we identified is what that gap would be. So when I say it was like an awakening from them, we've already been doing it, right? It goes back to the long-term planning. Um, I had multiple city managers reach out to me and say, could you send me that model? And so they can plug in their own numbers, right? And see what's going on. That's not, patting back or anything like that. But there is an awareness now that it is a cumulative effect of these individual decisions that the legislature is making. It's not one decision. For example, this year we have when we go into this year's budget, the constitutional amendment that changed the commercial values, raising the exemptions from 25,000, I think, to 250,000.
It was 2,500.
2,500.
They were looking at 250,000, but it ended up being 125,000.
Okay. So again, we can calculate the, I'll call it lost revenue, lost opportunity for revenue just based on that. Some of the exemption stuff that they're talking about that they did do and that they're talking about doing. So for us, there are a lot of what ifs, to your point, this next legislative session. We've analyzed that, taken that into account, and with the understanding is that there is an expectation in this community that the service levels, how we deliver service, is not to change, and that we need to be able to have our infrastructure. Now, I will tell you that we're starting to get to the point where things will need to be different. And what that difference looks like, that's what we're working on. We're talking about design. And I can't tell you any prime example right now because they are in the middle of the 5-year planning process as we're having these discussions. So I can't say, here's what this is going to be and that's going to be and that type of thing. So the gap is real. I mean, the math, we all basic, A plus B equals C, right? It's pretty basic, it's pretty straightforward, it's not calculus. It is what it is. And, I look back, since 2021, our inflation rate on average, granted you had a peak and everything like that, is right at 4.9% or 5%. And remember, the state's limited us on property, and I understand, that's fine. We're going to live within that, but limited us to 3.499. And over the 4 years or so, our budget, while it's increased, it has not increased at that rate. So we've been closing the gap as we see it, and we're still working, and I guess we're going to kind of show you about what the gap's looking like right now. So we've made a significant headway on closing the gap. And that gap, by the way, is what we're projecting by 2030. So this isn't us getting there all at one time. This is us making sure we're being very methodical and very intentional as we move through that. So that is what the Austin gap is. That's how we've defined it. Go ahead.
Good question, Mike.
Yeah.
So Austin gap is different from unfunded mandate, correct?
It's all part of it.
So,
Right.
Unfunded mandate would be part of the Austin gap.
Yes, right. Yeah, for those things, right? And there's another piece to this that we briefly talked about, and y'all are going to see a little bit of it Tuesday night, in the contract on the revenue. Taking a look at
And
that.
I'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, then I won't go too much into that. But here's another thing that happens to us that contributes to the gap. The state takes more and more, for example, out of fines, the court fines. But we don't necessarily raise the cost of the court fine. But they take greater percentages of that. So we are actually a feeder to state revenues. When I say we, I'm talking about our citizens and paying those things. And the state of Texas, we get about this much, zero, from the state of Texas, just for a library grant.
6,000?
I don't even know what it is now.
The what?
The library grant.
Oh,
It was
it's,
around 6,000.
Yeah.
or less.
Yeah.
It's under 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so our approach is, and you're going to hear us talking about this more. We talked about it last year. We're going to be talking about it more about not only what our strategies are. Here's more data to support the reason why we're making this recommended particular change, whatever that change is, to be different. And we also understand that we need to have the lens of our culture, the lens of the expectations of the community that says 98% of them are happy. So, and then the lens of how do we be as effective, because that's on the behavior and delivery side, but do it more efficiently. and do it in such a way that we know that our costs are going to just continue to increase, and much of that is out of our control. For example, the Encore, we talked about that last summer. Their Encore rate increases, they were increasing our cost on the light poles. And they were increasing by 100%, and they came down and settled at 50% increase, right? So I use that as an example of things that we don't control but have an impact on how we have to adjust. So, go ahead. So here's again where the council comes in, and when you see the word now, that doesn't mean right now, tonight. But on those policy issues, when we talk about tax rate, when we talk about revenue, what is our principles of revenue generation, I'll give you an example of what that looks like. In community experiences, specifically in their programming, they do return on investment as far as how much is the program costing us, how many are attending the program, what is the revenue generating off the program, and they evaluate each year those programs to know which ones that need to be dropped off or kept going, right? So that's what we mean by from a policy standpoint. You give us the big policy, we go work on how to deliver that. The direction, we just need to make sure we're clear and we ask the questions, is this what you mean when you say that, right? And then giving the feedback. I think we have a great relationship here that's a vulnerable relationship to understand that the feedback is about performance and what we do, because we understand why we do it. It's not personal, right? It's a business, but it's a business of serving people. And the human side of what we do in Coppell is what we lead with, and we will continue to lead with until somebody tells us that there's a different priority. Yeah. Okay. So when is that needed? As we go, remember I mentioned there were 9 times that we were going to be talking about the budget. Tonight is one of those nights. Actually, that makes 10. But as we move forward, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for our public to have input and for you to have input and give us the guidance. So you want to go ahead and go? Because this is where...
Yeah, and these are just to piggyback on Mike. These are the change to the rule. So just to give you some concrete things, repaying the CO bonds with M&O rate, that bill was introduced, it didn't go anywhere. Cap on the increase in expenditures, Mike mentioned that, and then reducing the voter approval rate, rate from 3.5 or revenue from 3.5 to 2.5.
Yeah, that's revenue, not the tax rate.
Revenue, yes,
yeah.
Revenue. And so what do we do to protect our what we value here in Coppell, our service levels, our well-maintained infrastructures, and that uniqueness about Coppell? We use strategies. And so we introduced our expenditure strategies. The assistant directors introduced these to you when they presented the 5-year forecast to council. And then during the budget workshops, I shared with you how each department utilize these strategies in building their fiscal year 26 budget. And if you recall, we reduced staffing. From the general fund, we moved 10 positions, removed 10 positions. Now, not all of them were total decreases. 3 of them were moved to water sewer. It was a total of 7.5 positions that we decreased. The other side of it, and it's something that we are now moving to the revenue side. And as Mike mentioned, when I talked to the chamber, one of the things that I was sharing with them was it wasn't about the numbers, it was having an understanding of where we get our revenue and where our revenue goes. And as he mentioned, just on a court fine, the cost on a ticket is $130. 78% of that cost goes to the state. The rest we get to keep. So we get 22%. You think about hotel occupancy tax. Somebody comes and stays in one of our hotel rooms, it's 13%. We get to keep 7%, 6% goes to the state. Sales tax, 8.25. We get to keep 2%, 6.25 goes. And oh, by the way, they keep a 2% fee, and I'm sure they're earning interest on our money while they're holding it for the 4 months to 2 months. So there's just lots of where the state is taking money from us that could stay into our community. So what we want to do is, and this kind of came from the chamber, their leadership group, when I'm talking this through and having a conversation, they're like, well, we just have to find new revenues. we need to reevaluate what we're charging for different things. I'm like, that's great. So we started researching a consultant to help us with that, to look at all of our revenue streams and to evaluate the cost recovery of services, not just with community experience, but with all the different departments looking at our cost recovery. But also, we have asked, and it was part of the request for proposal, to consider new fees. What are fees out there that we could be charging that we don't charge for? And I'm not saying that we're telling you that we're going to do that. It's just a policy decision. It's something that we would bring forward to council to consider. So it's looking at, are there new fees? And then also a strategy is making sure that revenue used for one-time costs, that we continue that. And that's that actual interest income over budget and that actual sales tax over budget until the rule has been settled. So these are strategies that you'll continue to see and hear about throughout the budget process. The other is, so what assumptions are we using as we build the fiscal year 27 budget, but also as we walk through the 5-year forecast process? Because our budget really starts with that 5-year forecast process. And so some of the assumptions that we are continuing are that we continue with the compensation philosophy that we've been told Coppell to remain in the top 1/3 of our survey cities. That we take into consideration the inflation rate, and that we do have a strategic use of assigned fund balance for one-time cost items. And then on the revenue side, we are continuing with revenue will increase 3.499 for the M&O part. We are continuing with council's philosophy around the INS portion of the tax rate, which you want to keep that stable. We are assuming that there will be no increases in property tax exemptions. And then we are assuming that we should include the reimbursement from the school district for the SROs, and that we should do the transfer from Rolling Oaks Memorial to the general fund to pay back for its phase 2. It is some transfers that the general fund made early on in the early setup of the cemetery, and then I think the Memorial Garden, the general fund gave money for that. So it's continuing that $250,000 transfer that we had the conversation about last year. So I'm going to stop here. Go ahead.
Kim, I know you were expecting some firm answers from us. Are you expecting a firm answer from us on the revenue assumptions?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
She's just wanting to what's coming up.
Okay.
So, in looking at all the stuff, the shenanigans down there in Austin, there were several bills that were in that same context that included a population cap. So out of 1,229 or 28 municipalities, it includes towns, cities, everything, in Texas, there are only 45 that have more than 100,000 people. So one possible strategy might be, because you'd have a massive lobby if you had all but, if you had 1,150 municipalities lobbying for less than 100,000. They could still accomplish all their goals and, going after the big cities, waste, fraud, abuse, and all that stuff by, as I looked at it, 100,000 population cap, that a lot of these restrictions wouldn't apply to those cities. And there are already multiple school districts in the state, in the rural areas, that are already contesting that part of the 5-step plan that would divest all school districts of any taxing authority. And they're proposing a population cap. So that might be one way to carve around it without addressing the substance of the limitations directly.
And, the governor came out with his charges, property taxes, and the elimination of the school tax. During the summer, I'm sure there'll be opportunities to be going down there to provide testimony. Senator Parker took a lot of joy. I don't know if that's the right word. He felt that he was instrumental in getting the population at 75,000.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
He did, I mean,
He was very proud of himself.
right, I mean, there were a lot of people talking to him in his district to say, this doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't work. And so, he led the charge in the Senate and worked with Senator Betancourt to get the 75,000.
Which would be perfectly fine too.
Yeah, it would, and that goes back to those whole series of questions where, because they were so bad at not being able to answer the questions. So we'll be able to watch this summer as we're going into the budget. I'm not sure when those hearings are gonna be held, but we'll start to get a flavor of what they're talking about. But you're right, I mean, the big two, while they're not on the same page, the big two still have it in for cities, as, related to this particular tax issue. And Betancourt's got his own plan, and basically his is a zero, right? It doesn't matter what you wanna do, go to the voters. I mean, and by the way, it's really hard to stand in front of them and give testimony, other than to say, we have none of the voters. There are 8 of us, and they've told us what we want in our community.
Well, and when exactly? I mean, we get the appraised values from the county appraisal
Right,
district
yeah.
about 36 hours before the state
Based
law
on their
requires
rules.
that we enact the rate.
Right, based on their rules. that
Right,
they
so I
create.
mean,
Right. Well,
right. I
they're,
mean, they got a lot of plans,
And
but
we
no way.
can't enact a
of
budget
making it
until we have a
You're not-
tax
you-
base.
right.
So you can't increase your tax base for your budget because the election is after you have to adopt your
Right.
budget.
Yeah,
But
It's a mess.
to Mess's question specifically, we'll get into, again, remember I said not right now. We will be looking for, it isn't a yes or no, we will be looking for a direction though. So I'm gonna draw that distinction in the way you raised that question.
Just not yet.
Yeah.
If I could add to the previous, a comment on the previous topic, I think the 75,000 population, I don't think we should feel happy about it. If they came after those cities today, they'll come after us. I think we should be unified in opposing it. I don't think we should sit back and let the others fight the big battle.
Well, it's divide and conquer mentality by the legislature. That's all that was.
Okay. So I did want to share the impact of the no new revenue compared to an increase in revenue of 3.499%, really on future service levels. And so this top section right here, the base is the 2026 budget. So when you look at salary and benefits of the general fund, that 52.3 million, that is straight from the budget. Is what was adopted for this 2026. Then all I did is I said, okay, we're gonna show all of the other expenditures. That amounts to the 23.7. So we get to operating expenditures only, and that's the 76.1. So then I said, what are our revenues other than property tax revenue? And I took that, and that totaled about 29, almost 30,000, or 29.7. So then the next is, so what is the additional revenue needed to support the service levels that's provided in this budget? And it was almost 46.5. The tax rate that was adopted, and it becomes our no new revenue rate, is 47 million, and it's the same for both scenarios. This is the 3.499, that's the no new revenue. So you can see where this year was good, but you can see that as the no new revenue rate doesn't change, you can see the impact that we're gonna have on services, because the gap between the additional revenue needed just to sustain what we have will continue to grow. This analysis is based on annual increases in salary and benefits of 4%. It's increasing other expenditures 3%, and then it's increasing the general fund revenues, the other revenues 3%. What I don't want you to leave, I have a disclaimer. This is my analysis. I do not know what the 5-year forecast, what the conversations that they've been having and what everybody has submitted, because this is only operations. They submit requests. things that are other things that need to happen that weren't part of operations, right? So you are not gonna, the numbers are gonna look different when the actual numbers come in. But for an analysis, I wanted you to see just a 4% increase in salaries and a 3% increase in other expenditures, and then a 3% increase in general fund revenues. This is what has to be filled. The no new revenue rate cannot fill it. So then we go down to the 3.499, and everything up here is the same. Okay, the additional revenue needed is the same for both scenarios. It didn't change anything. The only thing that changed was I'm increasing our property tax revenue from what's now our base by 3.499 each year. And you can see that we start to have a deficit in the future years, assuming we have the same service levels, right? And that's assuming inflation doesn't go above 3%. That's assuming that we can continue with the same number of employees that we have, and that salaries only and benefits only need to increase 4%. We don't know what the labor market will be and how difficult it would be to hire people, right? So there's a lot of assumptions, but I think these are very conservative assumptions to just show you. We've been showing you the bar graph so that you can kind of see, but I wanted to show it to you in a different way so that you can see the impact of a decision to do no new revenue versus 3.499.
Ramesh?
Thank you, Mayor. And for the benefit of anyone that is listening in, these numbers are not impacted by the property value assessment, because when we say no new revenue, it is how much did we spend or collect last year versus this year, and it's not dependent on property values. Just want to make a comment.
Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit stumped in the 3.499 category on the bottom. Why is the jump so exponential from 28 to 29? I see 29 to 30 is basically doubles, but that jump between 28 and 29 is incredible.
Mark, can I just ask, because I want to make sure we're clear, when you say the jump, are you talking about? the bottom,
587.
Yeah,
No,
okay,
for 5, 8,
a deficit of 5,
yeah,
5,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cumulative effect of the changes of the 3%, just as you go through. So you're 58, 25, 84, 32. It's just the way the numbers, I don't know how to say that. It's just the name of the way the numbers work.
One thing I'd offer too, Mark, is I think you have to look at that from the standpoint of the change from 27 to 28. That's almost the same differential as you get from 28 to 29.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so every year you're approximately $300,000 you're burning more than bringing in, and then that's getting compounded.
Cumulative.
Compounded,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Because it
Exactly.
reduced by about 300, and then it's reducing to get to the negative.
So just a little background, when SB 2, 3.5% went into effect, our rate of inflation was running about 0.5% to 1% a year. And the thought was that it was going to stay that way. And if it had stayed at 0.5%, 3.5% would be fine. But clearly, when you're operating at a 4%, 5%, it's not sustainable, and that's what this is showing. Thank you for the, this is a different view, but thanks for the data.
Anything else on this?
The only thing I would add again is that the same thought processes that have been going into our 5-year plans and the same processes, it is, so to your point earlier, Kevin, we've been looking at 2030 and 2031. And we are planning for 2030 and 2031 while we're building 2027.
Mhm.
And I want to put a plug in for the revenue consultant because they can help us close the gap by looking at other revenues, potentially.
Well, so what, I mean, I know like user fees, right, which are highly unpopular to raise. But what other just general categories of additional revenue would we have?
So we could look at E911, and it's a fee that's charged. What is the state, are we still consistent with the state? I think the state, we have a flat fee, the state has a percentage because it was adopted many years ago, so we could move maybe to the percentage of the bill. There are some other just crazy ideas that we kind of throw out, just brainstorming. But you're also, I know talking to the community experience department, one of the things that they have always done is making sure that their charges for service and how much it's costing to provide, that they're evaluating that, but also looking at how do we compare to other cities, right? Because maybe we haven't, and maybe our costs are increasing, and so.
And now I'll use a very old conversation that we haven't moved off of. There's an expense that goes along with it, but we typically do not host tournaments. We do not allow sports, right? And those are hotel rooms, those are weekends, those that have kids that you know.
Oh, yeah.
So my point being is that's policy. And when we come to you and we say, here's the kinds of things that we could do you have an interest in us pursuing those? That's how policy influences what we're talking about. That's just an example of a change. And we do what we do because we preserve our fields and we take care of the things that we do, and that's a good philosophy. It's a fine policy. What is changing on us though is what's happening down in Austin is causing us to have a different level of conversation. Because if you want to keep those things at that level, and I will tell you that one of those bullets up there about one of the ways we look at things is we look at every vacant position for what is the service being provided. Is that service still needed? Is there another way to provide that service, right? And this isn't about giving somebody else some other responsibility. It's about the program and the service, the why behind what we do. And from there, then we can say to you, okay, this facility only needs to be open from here to here based on the data. But you may say, we love your data, but we're going to keep it open for that 3% of the population in Coppell that still wants to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the rub. I mean, it always is, right? I mean, you open it up, the fields to tournaments, then the quality of life for the people that live here and pay the taxes for the fields have less access, and they're not quite as nice as they were
Just by
without the
utilization.
tournaments, right? So,
That's how policy relates to translates to what
Yeah.
decisions. That's what I mean by different. Doesn't mean we're still not providing the fields, and there's still a
oh yeah, yeah.
right. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
Bijou?
Yeah, thank you. Mike, we have the $192 million debt. Most of the debts, when we issued, we were receiving $40 million in sales tax revenue. That's how we are funding most of our, replacements. So when we projected that to the people that we issued bonds, right now we are collecting about or keeping $20 million in record, rest of them in bucket that we are keeping it. With that projection, the people who issued the bonds to us, are they okay with that?
Can I say I'm not sure I understand the question?
Okay, so I'll repeat. So we have $192 million debt.
That's across the board, all utilities, everything, not just the general fund.
Most of those budgets, both the debts were issued when we were collecting $40 million in sales tax revenue. 5
Okay.
years back or whatever.
Okay.
today, currently, we are collecting only 20 million in budget. Rest of, right, rest of them we are keeping as separate.
Right.
Are those people who issued the bond, are they okay with that, knowing we may not have that 40
Yeah,
million?
I would
and
answer the question this way. We went, was it 2018 or 19 when we issued the debt? We were with Jason and we laid out what we were doing, lowering, I mean, we talked about
Well,
lowering.
the 2024 bond issues.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they were impressed.
So the answer is, not only do they care? Yes, because it's tax supported, by the way. And, you know, that's the ones that really look into. But because we have a strategy and we have a plan and we're implementing it, that was all in our favor. And so the plans that we've been talking about, it builds all those things in. And so the next time that we will have the conversation with them, they evaluate our debt every year. And every year we get they hold up our AAA. And so maybe that's a way to answer your question best. Every year our debt is looked at and our financials are looked at, and we are continuing to be rated as AAA by both rating agencies. So that's a specific answer to your question.
Yeah, so we have the ability to repay. Mayor made a comment. They look at how do we repay.
Yeah.
And with the
The
$20
capacity.
million reduction in sales tax, if it's pulled out, we are okay.
The answer to that is yes. There's a reason why it's yes. The debt that is tax supported does not rely on the sales tax. It relies strictly on the property tax and our ability to pay.
But sales tax revenue is coming to the general
But
budget.
it has nothing to do with the property tax supported debt.
So
True.
can
Right.
it's two different buckets.
Right.
True, yes.
So you have the general fund bucket, and then you have the debt service bucket. The debt service bucket is the INS portion of the tax rate, and you are required to set your tax rate at the amount needed to fund that principal and interest that's due in 1 year. There's no sales tax in that bucket, it is only the INS tax rate in that bucket. That is what we are pledging as the amount what we will use to pay back the debt that is tax supported.
But the assumption is we are continuing to collect that sales tax revenue.
Okay. I'm just gonna ask, I'm gonna say it this way, and I mean it in a good way. What did you hear her say about property tax? I'm asking in a good way. I wanna make sure
So-
that we're talking the same thing.
Right. Some of the sales tax revenue is coming to the general fund, correct? 1%.
Yes. Okay, see, that's the reason I wanna be clear on what you're
Right.
asking. Okay.
And we are using that for many of the expenditures.
Yes, but not for the debt.
Understand?
Okay.
Because we have that extra revenue from the sales tax, we are able to do many things that we are talking about.
We do one-time things.
Okay. One-time thing and other expenses, right?
No,
Because once it
We-
goes
we-
to the budget, you are
yeah,
utilizing.
we have been budgeting as if the rule is in place. So the operation side is only using what we're budgeting. Now, if I understand your question, maybe there's another layer in here. The CRDC has debt. Remember we talked about the
Yeah, I
revenue
know.
debt? Right? So when the debt was issued for that was issued prior to the sales tax rule. Because that was for Andy Brown, that was 20-something million, if you remember at that time. The structure of the CRDC with the reduced amount of revenue still supports that debt. So when they look at the revenue, first of all, when it was issued, it's issued with a little bit higher interest rate because it's a revenue pledge. So for the bondholder, that's a little bit more risk than the property tax pledge. Follow that?
Yes.
Okay. So going back to when we met with the bond counsel and the bond and the financial advisors and everything, when we showed them our plan about how we were structuring our budget to pay for that debt, that's when they told us that is a great strategy, it is a great plan, and you are implementing it.
That's good because you have the cushion there, right? You had an extra,
No,
okay.
what we're saying is, we don't, what we're telling them is we are not counting on that cushion to be there.
Yes, for that particular one.
It applies to the whole budget.
Okay, okay. So, okay.
Does that's the reason I asked that question the way I did, because I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're asking.
Right.
Yes, it is to our advantage to have those additional dollars. No question. It allows us to set up and do the kinds of things we do.
Yeah.
But because of the way we do the budget, to the bond council, to the financial advisors, to the people who look at us, we are disciplined in our approach, and we are living within those means, as if that money didn't exist.
Right. So that's my question. So
Yeah.
with that money doesn't exist from what you just said, our service level and what we are providing today will be stable or will be static.
That is the intent as we look at the Austin gap.
Okay. So that brings up another point that I need to ask you. With that Austin gap that you mentioned, you had a bullet point there, service level.
Right,
That struck me, right?
right,
So I looked at our budget in the last 10 years.
right.
Increased from 109
Uh-huh.
million to 160. That's about 55% increase in our budget. With the sales tax revenue reduction that may happen
Right.
pending lawsuit, can we sustain that service level that we talked about? Also going forward, what are the challenges that you see that we're going to be facing
Right.
soon?
So my response to that is that if you continue to fund us using the 3.499, our ability to manage that is a better direction for us. That would be what my recommendation would be, because that is a manageable number. Because it's over time, and it allows us to measure and see what our service levels are, and be able to see, okay, just like I said earlier, personnel cost, if there's, if we could reroute some personnel, or we can get some tools in place that take care of those kind of things, that's a manageable number. That doesn't necessarily mean that services are gonna be lowered in any way. Maybe that's what I think you're asking. Yeah.
Yes.
But I can tell you that, and I'll use a prime example, I can tell you that the top line will absolutely impact service levels.
Yeah, so all these numbers are under the assumption that we continue to collect the sales tax revenue of $22 million.
No, they're based on collecting at what we're budgeting.
Right, today we
Well,
collect.
in the general fund budget, we're only budgeting about 17 million.
Right, but other IMF, CRDC, all
Oh,
run
but
by.
you apply that same principle to those budgets as well. I mean, let's just say we're collecting a CCPD $4 million.
Right.
Yeah, even though we're collecting more, we're saying we're living within those means of the $4 million.
Okay.
So does that help you?
Yeah, that helps, that's what I'm trying to say. So what are the challenges you see 10 years from today? Are we gonna have $55 million or 55%?
Oh, if
know,
you,
budget going up?
well, first of all, I would recommend that you keep doing the 5-year, because the 10-year doesn't mean anything, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are too many variables that could have an impact on it. But I would say to you that I think looking at these two areas, again, if they put, the biggest concern is the unknown of what Austin's gonna do. On a sales tax standpoint, our number that we've been using not only was 3.3, anywhere from 50 to 60%, whatever that number is that we reduced our sales tax down to. That is based on continually analyzing and understanding the way the law works with it being a destination based. So let's just say the federal government adopted streamlined sales tax, which is what this kind of started back in the early 2000s. That's the same thing as destination. So if the state were to do it or the federal were to do it, our goal is to stay and live within those means that we have been budgeting. And what we said, and I don't mean to complicate this at all, so I apologize. What we said though is we have built in that strategic reserve, is that what we're calling it? Because what if we're wrong? And then that allows us time to kind of bleed down and be able to make the kinds of reductions that are going to be necessary.
So
So
where
I
I'm-
think that I think that's
Yeah,
starting.
where I'm going with this is, the ask is, as a city manager, do you have any concerns of our expenditure from year to year?
I would tell you it isn't necessarily a concern of the expenditure. It is, we are scrubbing on a regular basis to reduce our expenditures, period. We're not looking to increase them. We're looking to reduce them as much as that we can within reason and the service demands that we have and keeping our community at the level that it is. And some things are just not in our control.
If I understood your question correctly, I was doing the math. It looks like between 2026 and 2031, or a 5-year, the expenditures is going up by 20%. But you're
So
saying
4% a year.
sorry,
So basically about 4% a year.
yeah, overall 20%. And if I understood his question correctly, his concern was in the last 10 years it went up 50%. What if it goes up 50% in the next 10 years? Will we have a problem? Is that, did I understand you correctly?
Well, in the long term, yes, but year to year, you know, my question is based on what we know from, say, Austin Gap that you
Right.
mentioned, and things are changing in legislation, like Jim was talking about. Are we in the right path? Are we in the right direction with our expenditure? Do we need to think about, hey, based on what's going on here, based on 3.499 and so on and so forth?
Yeah.
That's where
I
I'm
hope
concerned.
you- I hope-
The reason I'm saying this, our own school district had to lay off 72 people.
Yeah, let me be, if I'm not being real clear, we have been implementing cost reductions along the way. It's just things are increasing in cost. We are reducing our expenses. I think you said this year,
We took
7.5.
10 people out of the general fund.
Right, out of the general fund. We're talking about, it's really in personnel cost, right? Really, that's where it is. And the last few years, 20-something positions, I think it is. I don't remember. And that's why we're saying we're focusing on 2030. I say 2030 right now. If that's the gap that we have to make up, let's just say you were to go in that particular direction, I'm telling you that we will have, services will be impacted. The answer is yes, because the only way to really get there is through really paying attention to what we're doing with our positions. That's the bottom line. And we have been reducing our positions over the last several years. So, does that help?
It makes sense. I just wanted to understand. That's all. I
Yeah,
just want to
I
express
appreciate
that
the question.
concern.
Because if
out
we're not,
there.
if we're not communicating that we're managing our expenses and we're working to reduce our expenses,
Right.
many of the contracts that have come to you this year so far are actually less than the previous contracts. So we're scouring our vendors, looking for ways to reduce our costs. So it's not just personnel, it's also, right? But I'll give you another example. We already know, because our electric contract's gonna come up this year, our electric contract is probably gonna be doubled. Because we had a 5-year contract at a time when electricity was a lot cheaper. I'm not in control of that cost, and we're gonna have to offset that somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
That's what we all are paying
Right,
at home.
right. Yeah, but that gives you the example. So we are very serious about that. And when I said effective, because that's the delivery of the services, but how do we do that? Where do we build in efficiencies that we may not have right now? They are absolutely going through that exercise every day.
I mean, the reason, the example I cited for the school district, they had to go through that process, and
We've been going through it.
that's why. I mean, it's a major impact to the the school district.
That's why you get to have the discussions today that we're having as opposed to the school district's conversation. And I don't want to have the council in a position in 2030 to have that conversation. Because I would say to the person sitting in this chair, if you saw this coming, why didn't you do something about it? Excuse me for saying it this way, the school district knew this was coming, and the board, there were decisions that were not made along the way.
That's why I'm asking this question today.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, I think we had a question from Don.
The other general fund revenues, we feel pretty comfortable with 3%. Is that actually, are we actually getting a 3% increase in those? Because sales tax is the big chunk of that, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
probably been less than that, hasn't it?
No, it has
I thought we were-
been in the 3 to 5. Now, we saw it come down when we had
A particular business.
yes, yeah,
Okay,
and we
we-
watch it, I mean,
But we're back to more of a 3 to 5.
Yeah, it's-
I was
yeah,
thinking it's more like
yeah.
1%, or it sort of drifted down to
So
a pretty small increase.
point out that that one business cost us $6 million a year.
Yeah.
So that was a big hit.
And you didn't feel it around this table.
And I'm just making sure that I thought we were running about 1%
Yeah.
on sales
No.
tax. I thought sales tax in general had cooled off. I mean,
Well, here's the
regardless.
here's the issue. Because everything's more expensive, there may be less being ordered,
Mm,
but it's more expensive.
more expensive.
And so the sales tax, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the seesaw effect as far as sales tax is concerned. Now, the other fees that we talk about, that's really the same answer. It's as they charge more for X, or they charge more for Y, or different things. Some of our revenues are based on some of those percentages. Others, because the state freezes them, which, for example, is the right-of-way fees and those kind of things, you just don't get that kind of growth in those particular franchise fees. Some of them, you just don't get the growth in them.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody have anything else?
so, are you
Yes.
good
So,
with our assumptions?
right, as we go into the budget, these are the assumptions that we're plugging in. To your question, Ramesh, it isn't a defining, sure, this is what we're adopting. We just need to know this is the direction that we continue on in the development of the 27 budget.
Kevin?
Include reimbursement from CISD for SROs. So what this is saying is that the assumption would be that this district would reimburse us for half of the SRO cost, or that,
Yes, that's,
And
that
it-
previous arrangement that we've had.
right, that's how we went into last year's budget. We plugged in, this is what we would expect to get from them, and then y'all in July, when we were talking about the crime control district, you may have mentioned it in May, you said, let's not do that. It's like, okay, fine, we take
And-
that out.
Over the last 4 years, from 21 to 24, the average is about $222,000 is what the school district, because they were reimbursing.
Mhm.
And on average per year, it was about 222,000.
And we know that it went up after the previous legislative session because they required an SRO in every school. And we had that initial cost to start that up.
Yes.
So that was a bump
Mhm.
because it was the capital investment as well. So I know the number's higher than that now, just because there's more SRO.
Are you,
No, I wanted to know that number, but then you said it was higher, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
okay, I was, so if we decide that we don't want the reimbursement, do you want us to tell you that now, or wait until we get the numbers in a couple months, at those things?
Philosophically, if you don't want it, you can tell us now. It's a paper exercise right now.
Sure, I mean,
And I don't know definitively what the numbers are because they don't look at it till the end of the school year.
absolutely.
Maybe the way to ask that is, do we think that we're gonna grant them an exemption in July again?
Okay, Kevin, if I remember correctly, it was resources, approximately $1.5 million. That's what I remember.
All I know is that, I was just gonna comment that, as of right now, our sales tax situation hasn't changed yet, so I would like to proceed with not getting the reimbursement from CISD, so I just wanted to throw that out there. If we wanna wait and see it, actually, when that special revenue fund is presented, I'm happy to wait until then, but we're just talking about what we see up here, so just figured I'd throw that out there.
Don?
I'd probably recommend going ahead and showing it like we had before, because I would actually like to understand the impact
You wanna see
of
the-
what it is.
And that's fine.
I am probably in agreement with Kevin that I would be in favor of continuing what we're doing, but it is good to see what the impact is, what we're contributing.
So what is the reimbursement from Rolling Oaks?
So we were doing a $250,000 reimbursement from Rolling Oaks to the general fund, and that was to repay the general fund for basically we did some infusion into the cemetery at the beginning. We
Gotcha.
paid for phase 2, and there was a memorial garden that we paid for. So it was a little over $3 million. They were going to pay it back over so many years.
Have we paused to that at any point?
We did this year. The direction given was, let's stop that and look at it every year. So that's why we're asking, similar to the SROs, right? Those were the two items that you guys gave us different direction. And so we just thought, get a pulse on what your expectations are, and we can build that in. If you want to see it there, or if you don't want to see it there.
I'd like to continue the reimbursement from Rolling Oaks personally. Because I think they can adjust their pricing, on a little bit more flexible way than we can on some things.
Ramesh?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a slightly different take on that. If there's an option where we could write that $2.5 million off from one of our reserve funds and not let the general fund be dinged for it, because if we do that, that has a little bit of an impact to the tax rate. So I don't know if it's possible, but I would propose that out. I know, like you used the example before, you're taking from Peter and paying Paul.
It's,
Okay, go ahead, Kim. Explain to him how it's not recorded.
It's not recorded. It's just we are keeping track that the general fund paid for these things, and so do we just want to have the cemetery
And it's not recorded
pay
as
it
a
back? It's
liability
not
to the.
a liability on our OMC's books, and it's not a receivable in the
It's an
general
internal
fund.
memo.
Yeah,
It's a handshake memo.
yeah.
So it's just really, it goes back to the policy again. Do you want us to continue on? And let's just say that the council says, okay, we don't again this year. We will still have track of it. And we'll know what it is, so that someday that you just like, okay, well, we get the fees and the right structure at RMC, and it's time to start.
I see the value in what Jim is saying. If we didn't waive the reimbursement, we can evaluate ROMC's financial status on its own, but we already know it's something that the city has to support anyway.
I don't think so.
So am I
So
hearing?
we are taking tonight that this is how we're gonna develop the 27 budget.
We're going to include it in there so that you can see the impact, and then you can decide to take it out if you want. Well, that would be a change that you would then see reflected in that last budget workshop.
Jim?
So going back to one of your earlier slides, when one of the proposals that are being considered is that the M&O rate would have to basically pay everything that's now being paid by the INS rate.
The
So
legislative-
basically, they're just saying we would have to fund all expenditures and debt through M&O.
The new debt.
Yeah, this
If
would
we
be a
understand.
total game changer.
Yeah.
It would look very different.
Yeah.
Right.
Just to be clear, so far they're at least talking about new debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Now, here's where the trick comes in though. What that really is trying to force is before you issue debt, you go to a GO bond. Because the GO would still be on the INS side, right? This is the go to the voters mentality. So you could issue debt if the voters support the debt. And oh, by the way, we're gonna tell you that you can only go to the voters for this kind of debt.
so there would still be an INS fund,
They're right.
but it would only be associated with G&O debt.
That's what we understand.
Okay, thank you, I didn't.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The point is they don't want, it's really interesting because you ask about the state rating and everything. If they go after CEOs, the state's probably gonna take a hit, on their bond rating, because it's.
They're AAA too.
They are
Yeah.
triple.
Yeah.
We look.
And,
I saw that.
and it's gonna be difficult. It will impact them as well. So, yeah, so the types of things that they're talking about on the general obligation debt are not only streets and those kind of things, but also a lot of quality of life. So anything related to parks, they don't want you issuing debt for certificates of obligation for parks anymore. I mean, it's clear based on the language that they're using. No matter if you have a CRDC or not, or or if you're not that we're doing it, but being specific. If you're going to do debt for a city hall, you got to go to the vote. Well, that's kind of growing cities that have that issue, or some city that hasn't been taking care of their facilities, like the city of Dallas,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or,
We got to share.
And
Brianna had a question.
no, I was just saying, I mean, you bring up a good point too on what are the rules. This is all based on the rules that we know today.
Right.
So,
I was gonna ask you a question about something you said a while back. And I guess I wanna understand the timing of this. When you said we're gonna have to look at things differently. And so as part of the budget process to come up or to present some of those things that are different to us. And I want to go back to, like you mentioned, no, just real quick, you had mentioned about like the use of our fields, right? I mean, there's so many pieces to that puzzle, because there was a time when we didn't even have hotels, and now we do, and we have the infrastructure to support something like that, but to think differently and outside the box, and then to think, like, then what's the impact for maintenance, right, on that? So is that from a timing perspective?
Now, the conversation, I think that's going to be, there's going to be phases to the conversation, is the best way to say that. So, for example, I think the way that's structured is going to be the community experiences first. Is that right?
yes.
So that's when that conversation comes up. When we get to the fire department, it'll be the fire department conversation. So it's not going to be, it would be overwhelming to us as a staff if they were to do it all at one time too. Forget, it would be overwhelming to y'all to hear every single department to go through and look at every single opportunity for a user fee or a new revenue or anything along those lines.
Right.
And there is a word of caution related to this, because in the states where this path has gone down, and you've already seen it in the state of Texas, we're going to limit, this is choking. They're going to limit your property tax revenue. They're going to limit your, fees. They've already started that in building inspections, for example. And we're not going to let you charge new fees. I mean, they're going to come out, and this playbook that's out there is very specific about the way they're attacking this.
So some of the things that Mike is alluding to, the city's already started doing. You know, we're already charging credit card fees. We never used to do that. That was one of the things that he talked about.
It's different.
Different.
No, agreed, yeah.
We don't have a library fee. Well, we might at some point in the future. We don't charge for ambulance service. We might in the future. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are out there.
We do see the insurance bills.
Well,
Yeah. We don't charge our residents.
we don't charge our residents.
Right, we don't figure
But,
residents, right.
it's that kind of stuff. I mean, and it's already started moving in that direction. So, he's just preparing us for the inevitable changes that are going to come. Somebody have a
Jim.
question over here? Jim?
I was just just an observation on a lot of that cap and cut stuff. The problem is that those other states also had a state income tax, so the destabilizing effect of cramming down the property tax, and, all the fees and that sort of thing, the other states were better able to handle it.
So Mike sent out a very thorough study that was published down in Austin.
If
I
this
was
is
the
the
one
same
that
one?
found it.
Yeah.
It was
But-
Ryan Chismark, he's,
So it was the same one?
yeah.
But if you haven't had a chance to at least glaze through it, take a look at it. It's pretty, it's going state by state on 13 different states that have done.
Yeah, they've
Something-
tried it.
I read the whole document.
Yeah, but there's 13 states that are used as a study, and it's pretty sobering. very sober.
Well, yeah, it's,
That's one word for it.
given the sensitive mics, I'll just sit here quiet.
That's why I warned everybody.
Okay, anybody, Don, I'm sorry, did you have something? No?
I don't think so. Do I need to come up with something?
No.
Please do
He
that.
took the
Please
glasses
don't.
off, he's ready.
Rain your wisdom
I
down.
don't see it.
So,
This is the last one.
yeah, this is the last question. In the work sessions, y'all, where we talked about the direction for the budget, this is also an opportunity for y'all to say, you know, here's some things that we'd like you to consider or get back to us on. For example, I used the Veterans Memorial several years ago. It's like, okay, we didn't have that in the 5-year plan. Let's look at it, let's put it together. And it took several years to get there, but we finally got there. So, with the full understanding that, and I think this coming Tuesday night, it is the 2040 for adoption.
Yes.
You will be doing the rating like you've done in the past very soon after that. We just did, there was no reason to do it based on the old, so we know that there's gonna be more discussion on that. So you're gonna have more opportunity, it isn't just about tonight. So it really is there something that you want us to be thinking about, aware of, like have us take a look at from a budgetary standpoint? Just, it's a what else question.
Jim?
Is there an ongoing effort, like through Texas Municipal League or some other organization, to take another shot at expanding the allowed usages of the HOT fund, the HOT?
It was discussed at the NTC yesterday, and I know that there's been some, you're on the board now, there's been some resolutions of support for expanding the use of the HOT funds.
So are the expanded or allowable additional usages something that we would want strategically with respect to some of these same issues?
Some of it is related to parks and recreation
Okay.
directly, because they can tie it, because of all these tournaments as an example, they can tie it to the hotel rooms. So there's a nexus. I don't know what the other ones are, but I know that one has been over multiple sessions been talked about.
And I would say from the HOTs, from the hot tax stand, or hot tax,
Yeah.
the tax is already in there from the hot,
The whole
it,
tax.
you know, it's so restrictive, like you said, you know, it really does need to be expanded.
Mhm.
We
Another-
had to do that on the CRDC, you know, when we reauthorized that back 8 years ago.
Yeah, and with all the additional hotels we have coming online, that offers some promise.
So, yes, so there are other communities that have already introduced resolutions through TML and the North Texas Commission, that's one of their bullets of support.
Good, good.
Anything else? I know it's a lot, and it's Friday night, and we hit the 8:15 mark.
Sheree still has an hour left at Cotillion.
So you want to be here?
I'm just saying, around our house,
No.
it's me and Cricket when I get
So
home.
let's bring them up to date on Woking.
Well, I don't even know what you told them, so.
Not much.
Okay.
So, from time to time, I get hit up by foreign folks about creating a sister city. I had Mike look into it, and creating a sister city is actually fairly invasive on us and the other city. It requires formal agreements on trade, there's some travel that's required, and it was very difficult for us as a relatively small city to find another international city that we trade with. There is a second category called a friendship city, much less restrictive, much less formal, requires just a council declaration on both parts. So we thought that one of the possibilities was a city in England called Woking. That happens to be the headquarters of McLaren. So Mike reached out to Woking, to their city administrator, to see about the opportunity for doing that, and he received the most polite answer back, and I'll let him fill it in.
Basically what it said, so if y'all remember last September, I went to Leeds, and so I started hearing about this. In England, there's doing a lot of consolidation of governments, and, they govern a little bit differently. But when I say consolidation, meaning, they were, in essence, disbanding councils and mayors, for various reasons. And in this particular case, Woken has been taken over by the English government because of, financial mismanagement.
What did she called it? Gross.
Yeah, gross mismanagement. And so while it would be nice for the mayor to meet with the mayor, there won't be a mayor in 27. So it's sad, but it was also a little bit humorous to kind of hear, and this is, by the way, if you've ever seen the headquarters for, if you watched F1, the movie, that scene is the McLaren headquarters. It's very sharp.
Woking is a city of 100,000 people.
Yeah.
It's not a little
Yeah.
village.
So anyway, it's kind of crazy.
Anyway, so we
We're not doing it.
didn't do that. So anyway.
No time.
No, I do have one thing for tomorrow, though.
Okay, yes, we do start at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I apologize that I will have to be out of here by 10, like I mentioned earlier. And Mike,
Yeah, this is a prompt question. And it's a question we'll be asking tomorrow when we're talking about the Old Town, because that's on the agenda tomorrow. What I'd like for y'all to think about is how do you define success? And I'm going to give you examples so it makes it more tangible. Is success increased sales tax for existing restaurants? Is success increased value because there's new construction? Is success, when we do traffic counts, that there's more traffic down there? What are measurable things, whatever those things are, and I just gave you 3 examples. What are those kinds of things that give you, we're moving in the right direction? How do we know that we're moving in the right direction so that it becomes more tangible of what success is as opposed to vision and those types of things? Because we've been talking about, we think that will help in the conversation. The reason why I'm saying that to you is when the board was here, every single board member from across the country and around the world loved Old Town Coppell. And they all went and shopped at Let It Shine and at George's for coffee. And they were all like, this is the greatest place to slice bread, And if you've had friends come in, what we hear all the time is people love Old Town.
Stepford.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, I only say that is because it's like, okay, so how does council really define success? And doesn't mean it's going to be written in concrete, y'all. It just helps us as we're having the discussions that we'll continue to have. What does success mean to you? And if we had that kind of understanding, I think we could do a better job of providing more. Bless you. Wipe off. We can do a better job of providing you more concrete thoughts and ideas. So that's my request, that when we come in tomorrow. And tomorrow, from an agenda standpoint, we're going to start off with the executive session. We're going to be talking about real estate, just as an update on some of the things that we've been talking about. Then we'll get into the Old Town conversation. And really, it's really straightforward. Mindy's got a really straightforward presentation just to walk y'all through. Here's the things that we're doing. Here's what the next steps are. Here's where we are. And then there's some open discussion around that. And then Mateo will be coming in and just giving you an update on what we're doing with One Coppell, which is the community engagement project. So that's what tomorrow is about. It's possible we can be through by 10. It's really dependent on y'all's discussion. It's possible we'll be through before 11 because apparently he has to go to Flower Mound or earlier.
Or before that.
And so that's the agenda for tomorrow.
We'll be done.
Why do you love Flower Mound?
My daughter is done.
Oh, okay.
So,
He's courting them as our new sister city.
I'm missing the first
friendships.
dance.
Friendships.
I'm missing the first one, so I'm trying to get to the other.
So I want to say thank you for tonight. This has been very, very helpful. And let me also say, we all got this cough or whatever. She mentioned earlier about the presentation that she made at the chamber. It was great because at that chamber presentation, at the conclusion of it is, they were specifically asking, what can we do to help? Right? What can we do to help? And so the more, we've talked about the road show now of her presentation going out there because it really did generate a very positive feedback. It helped us in our presentation. It helped us identify with people. Look, just think about this for a moment. You've heard more about budget in the last, this council's been together for a long time now, I will say. So you've heard way more than the budget than those folks that were sitting in that audience. And it was an eye-opener for them. And, Kim did such a great job. It was such an eye-opener. They want to be engaged in how do we overcome what's happening down at the state. So if you know that you have some groups that you'd like us to speak at, if you like, she is ready to go on the road show with that. So that's it, Mayor.
All right, anybody have anything?
I think we talked about this some time ago. Our representatives, whether it's Cassandra or Dan Parker, they should listen to this. And next time they come here for a town hall or what have you, we should tell them you have to listen to this before we let you meet the people.
So I will say that the mayor is working with Senator Parker, and we've met with Cassandra. Now, this was last year. So this will be an update to, as you get ready to go into it. So thank you.
All right, there being no further business before the council, we are adjourned at 8:26. And please come and get a cookie while they last.